Episode 113, interview with Srvent, rap artist.
Hey, I'm Nate, and you're listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast.
And this is Daniel. In this episode, we're going to be interviewing our new friend from Canada, Spencer Richard. He's a rap artist, and he just came out with a brand new EP that is basically a tribute to a movie that we recently reviewed, Battle Angel, Alita, and I can't wait to get into it. Let's talk to him right now. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. Spencer, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. I'm super excited about this episode. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. This is good.
Yeah, man.
Happy considering the crazy world we live in right now. How are things up there in Canada right now?
Things up in Canada are interesting. I think that they're a little less interesting in the States right now from what I've been reading, but, there's lots of lockdown, lots of people self-isolating. I know as for myself and my household, I'm the only one going out of the house, essentially. I go out and film a little bit here and there, or go get groceries, but otherwise my wife and children are basically homebound. Like, they get outside, but there's nothing else to do in town anyway. I mean, rec center's closed.
Super weird.
It is weird.
And I got 4 kids, and it's like we go to the library every other day. We go to the parks, and we can't do that.
No,
It's going a little crazy.
yeah, it's sad.
We actually went on a spontaneous camping trip just Sunday night to Monday morning. We went to this like camping site nearby that had these like glamping tents. They're enclosed. They've got AC. There's a king size bed. There's a TV. It's awesome. It's like a hardcore tent. And it was fun. We did that for a night, and then we came home. We're like, we just need to get out of here.
No kidding. Yeah, well, I guess you guys can do that down in Texas, hey?
Yeah, some places like this are open because they can guarantee some level of spacing. We stayed away from. There was only one other family there, so it was like a ghost town, which is perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome. Well, Spencer, why don't you tell us about where you're from and what do you do?
Okay, well, I'm from Canada. I'm from Edson, Alberta. It's a tiny little town, population about 10,000 people. Though I was born in Edmonton, which you may have heard of before, the Edmonton Oilers. That's a hockey team.
Yeah.
So I was been in Alberta my whole life, and what I do for my passion is rap music, and I have learned a lot of things around the field of rap music. Like, I make music, I compose, I produce, and that's what I did originally as a child. And as I fell in love with rap, I learned that, hey, I can actually make the music behind the rap music, and I can make rap music. So I produce, I mix, I master, and I do most of my own music videos as well. And I edit in Premiere Pro, and it seems like I'm, just sort of doing all that all the time. And then as for my main moneymaker, what I do for work is videography, which I wouldn't have been able to do had I not been making my own music videos. It's going to help me get into things.
It's so cool.
That's a little bit about me. I'm sure there's more.
So how can listeners find your work?
They can look me up if they go to srvent.com. They'll find everything there, spelled Srvent. Another place is if you Google it, it'll come up. If you YouTube it, though sometimes Google and YouTube have biases against me. They think when you type Srvent, Srvent, that you mean servant, like, Servant, the normal spelling. And so they'll give you all sorts of stuff that's unrelated.
Oh, gosh.
But it is coming up. Like, if you type it in, and if you're determined enough, you will see my name, and you'll see that it's like, musical artist, rap artist, stuff like that.
So autocorrect is your enemy.
It is a little bit. It's kind of cool because if people do type it in right, and a lot of these search services, they will go straight to me, right? Because there's no one else named Srvent spelled like mine is. But then Google's still a little bit slow. They're still taking their time. I think it depends where you are in the world. If you're in Edson and search it up, I think it knows where to send you. But in Texas, I don't know. You guys might get some different things.
I'll find out. I'll let you know what our Texas Google results are.
Yeah.
Well, before we get to talking about your actual music and your EP, explain your name. Where does it come from? What's the kind of the story of your artist name developing?
Okay, this'll buy us some time.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Whole new episode. Part 1.
Yeah, part 1. Well, Srvent is it kind of has a double, maybe even a triple meaning. I fell in love with rap music when I was about in grade 8, and I'm just a white kid from a small town in Alberta, and it seemed like at that time, other than the example of Eminem, it just seemed like it was off limits to me. Like it's like I couldn't do that. And though I loved it so much, and I eventually branched out, it wasn't just Eminem. I listened to more and more artists. It wasn't until I was about 21, 22, I think, I started to really write rap. I had been writing fiction. I had been writing some poetry. I had been making music my whole life, as might have already said. I had been doing piano compositions since my earliest memory is just hanging out in front of a piano. And that's a bit of the musical background into how I decided to do rap music, and then why I decided it would be like why Srvent would be a good name is because, well, Spencer means servant. It basically translates into dispenser of provisions, the one who is handing things out to other people. So it's a kind of servant. So Spencer means servant. And then I saw my music service as I wanted it to be like, for me, music that mattered the most was the kind of stuff that got me through things, that helped center me emotionally and spiritually, things that carried me through my life. And I wanted my music to be that kind of music, not necessarily fluffy stuff. Like, yeah, we all like to get up and dance and burn some energy, but like I wanted stuff that really mattered and that had a lot of meaning to it.
Yeah.
So I thought Srvent was appropriate for that because it would humble me enough to realize that my role is of providing a service. It's giving to other people, and it's not like taking from them. And so that's part of the reason. And the other part, in terms of spelling, why it's Srvent, is that psychologically speaking, it stands for Spencer Richard, which is my full name, Spencer Richard, and then Vent, because that's how I see my music in a psychological sense. It's that if I don't do it, I combust, I explode, I kind of get pent up.
I totally understand. It's the same with me and my various creative outlets, like creating and photoshopping and 3D work. I get so bored and just subconsciously like flustered when I'm not being creative in some way. I'm not happy. I'm an artist, so.
It's sort of a, I think it's actually a good distinction between like hobbyists and real artists. Not that I'm puritanical about that. Like if you're getting into it and you're dabbling and you're making art, you're an artist. But there's something to be said about the kind of person who needs to make art. They can't put it aside.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and I think that there are fewer people out there who are like that than we might think. It's just like, it's a way of being. Some people are storytellers, and we're storytellers.
Man, that's crazy. So how did you get started with your music and rap?
Officially, it started when, I was turning 25 because my first daughter was just a baby and she was just new. I don't even think she was a year old. So that makes sense. So, okay, so it was for my 25th birthday. My mom was really nice to me. She gave me like $100 or $200 or something like that, just as like, here you go, hon, or here you go, like take some money to spend on whatever you want. And it was really nice of her. And I had saved up a little bit too. And I had been making music, and I'd started writing songs with lyrics in them when I was 17, when I started playing guitar. Literally, I think the evening that I picked up the guitar after playing piano, and I did take piano lessons, but I can't read music at all. Despite 8 years of lessons, I can't read music. I'm just a stubborn rebel, and I just like don't want to do what other people are doing. I just want to do my own thing. So picked up guitar, and then I started to write with lyrics, and that was bizarre. And then they just kept getting quicker and quicker as I grew in confidence. Like, hey, hit a point like 24, I think. Hey, I think I want to do rap music. So I started doing some stuff that was rap, but then I was thinking, how do you make a beat? So then enter my birthday. My mom gives me a little bit of money, and then I had a bit saved and only had the one kid, so I wasn't too financially burdened at the time.
Those good old days.
Yeah, the simpler times. And so I went and I spent $100. I got the intro version to Ableton Live, and I got the microphone I am talking to you through right now, which I think was less than $200. This is all Canadian, so I don't know if that's like $20 for you or something, but
Sure.
yeah. So I got this microphone. I got Ableton Live, and I had a keyboard already. My wife got it for our anniversary. No, for a wedding gift. I think she got it. I can't remember. She got it for me anyway. So I knew it had a MIDI connection. So then I also got a USB audio interface to connect MIDI. So my keyboard's connected to my computer now, and I had a microphone that could connect to the interface.
Cool.
And I did that and very promptly started to dabble around with some of the instruments that they had and some of the drum kits.
Awesome.
And then it was in September. So August is my birthday. It was like the next month I put out a Kickstarter, and I had made 3 demos of 3 rather rough songs compared to what I'm doing now. And I put those into a thing. I did a write-up, and I kind of felt like it was like, just screw it. Just so self-conscious about my stuff, but I felt like I just needed to try. And so I put it out there, and miraculously the Kickstarter was funded. I think I was asking for about $800, and I was asking for the full version of Ableton Live because I was quite limited with the, you're limited to the number of tracks, the instruments.
Like 4 tracks.
There was a lot of
8
challenges with it, but I thought if I had the full version, then I could learn how to do it. And my thriving philosophy at the time was, if there are people my age who are producers, there are people who are doing it, and if they can do it, then I can do it. Because I'm a relatively intelligent guy, and I think that
you're alive, and
there's YouTube, right? There's ways that we can learn,
right?
So I just kind of went to town, and that was, I guess, chronicling the start of Identity, which was my first album. And so I spent about roughly 3 years just learning all these stupid lessons with production. Like I knew that you could have multiple layers of tracks, and I was having fun with that. But I didn't know you could EQ anything. I didn't even know what EQ was. I didn't know like lower versus high frequencies. Like there were so many simple lessons that when like little explosions that would go off throughout those 3 years until I eventually released my album. So I would say that's a good answer of how I started.
That's a learning album. That's cool. Well, for anyone out there listening that's interested in getting into music and music writing or production, Ableton Live 10 is free right now for 90 days because of the virus outbreak. Yeah.
Wow.
The full version is free for 90 days.
Dang, yeah, hop on that and make some tracks, man.
Ableton is really powerful. That's what I use for my music, and all the intro outro music we use for the show, I've all made from scratch. Well, with samples, but from scratch for in Ableton, and I've used it for over 10 years now. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. So I guess about 5 years for me, but it's super great, and it's a language too. In that there are other DAWs that I can look at, and when I'm working with other artists or producers and I see what they're doing a little bit, I go, that's interesting. I understand the principle, but I just like Ableton better because it's so user friendly and I know where all the buttons are. And
I've got a ridiculous collection of free VST instruments and crazy samples. I have so many folders of great samples. It's just like a treasure trove. I'll share with you if you want.
Oh yeah, man.
But I've got a really good collection built up over the years.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I love sounds, and I like samples. A lot of my stuff isn't sample heavy, like some hip hop is. There's some things that I don't do very much of, but I do sample a bit. I definitely do. Typically, like I would find a sample, something specific I'm looking for, and I might try to YouTube something that's copyright free or, do what I can.
Public domain. Well, a lot of my sample libraries are sampled instruments. So like they'll sample each key of a synth, or they'll sample each string of an instrument, and they have kind of the different velocities and different types of ways to play the instruments all sampled. So you load that into the sampler or various sampling plugins, and you can basically replay that instrument.
Yeah, it just throws it into a MIDI, and then you got it on your keyboard.
Yeah. But I love synthesizers too. I've got a lot of really good synthesizers that are fun to play with. Just bought one today for $1, actually. Genesis Pro just came out like a few weeks ago. Yeah, it's really good, and it's for $1 freaking dollar. It's great.
Man, you can't even get a chocolate
while
bar
it's
for $1.
Right?
Yeah.
And if the video trailer is anything trustworthy, this synthesizer looks pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
Well done.
well, let's move on. So tell us, what do you do with your music? Do you do live shows? I mean, you've got your EP, you've been making albums or EPs for a while. Do you do any artist collaborations? Tell us about like what do you actually do with your music?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, I do perform. Not right
Cool.
now, due to COVID.
Yeah, please don't report for right now.
Yeah, so I'm not performing right now. Actually, coincidentally, so last year I decided like, man, I just want to perform as much as I can last year. And as a dad with 2 kids and like a real full-time job at that time,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do. But I mean, I did perform, I think over a dozen times. I had a good
Wow.
number of performances. I had a couple festivals and I did a couple of like my own shows, where I'm in what's headlining. Yeah, it's been so long. Yeah, where I'm headlining and other people are opening for me, and I'm kind of crafting those, and then others where
Cool.
I'm opening, and a couple like artist showcases, that kind of thing. So I do perform. I like to perform. In fact, I love to perform. But this year, at the start of it, I decided that I was going to perform less, and I was going to try to focus more on video content. And so far, it's not exactly going my way. I haven't had that much video content. There's been a lot going on. Like I filmed a music video I haven't edited yet because it's going to be for a project that's upcoming. I'll probably tell you about. Um, but I do work with other artists. I really like to collaborate.
Yeah.
I love to work with singers. I'm an okay singer. I have a range that if I'm working with my voice, I can do good things. But in the higher ends,
Within that
yeah,
range
within
only.
my range,
Same with me.
yeah, and probably for everybody, but some people just they have greater ranges and they sound pleasing in certain
Yeah.
frequencies. Like I might hit a note, but that doesn't mean it sounds good.
I got like 4 good notes right in the middle. Just that's it.
Yeah, and all the half notes in between them you just can't do.
No, not those.
Yeah.
No, I'm only the white keys. I can only do C major scale.
Yeah, that's probably me too, and I should stop trying the black keys. But yeah, I mean, I like to sing and I like to I write all my own stuff, but I do like to work with other artists, and I am doing a little bit more of that. I worked with
Yeah.
I've got a guy sending me a verse presently, actually, talented artist out of Winnipeg named Babylon, who's like super sharp lyrically. Like the guy, I did my verse and I produced the track and I sent him the thing, and then he did the second verse, and I was like, geez, like, come on, man.
Can
Like,
I redo
give
mine?
me a shot here. But yeah, and I've worked with other artists. Actually, I have a really big feature that I'm sitting on for a music video that I filmed for a project that I'm sitting on, but I guess I'll come back to that later. I like to work with artists.
Yeah.
I produce for other artists sometimes. There's a singer named Dalen Jorgensen, based out of Edmonton, and we had a single come out that I produced and mixed and mastered, and it was her song. And she came to my studio and we recorded, and then I came up with all the musical instrumentation and we worked together.
Cool. That's
Yeah,
fun.
that was fun.
I would like to do more production like that. Like I want singers to send me a song or instrumentalists send me like a track they've made, and I want to build something around it. Like I love doing that kind of stuff. The programming.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
fun. I bet
Yeah.
you'd be good at it too.
Well, I've had a few years into it. I feel like I should be much better than I am. But I think it's just having a good idea in front of me is what I need. I need a good song already written or a good direction to go, and then I can explode within that confines. But on my own, I start to write a song and I just kind of hit like a wall where it's like it just doesn't have the melody to carry it. And honestly, it's probably because I'm not using a keyboard. I'm just doing everything by mouse right now.
Oh, wow. That's challenging.
I don't have room to put my keyboards up. And my main keyboard I've had for years, it's an Edirol PCR 800 or 600. I love it, but I think it's broken. I've tried to power it on and like the power light just starts flickering and it won't
That's
work.
so sad.
It's like 15 years old. So, I feel like, if I had a keyboard, I could write like actual songs and get a little bit farther in that process. I blame my kids. I did set up my keyboard and my kids just hogged it. And I was like, well, I'm never putting this out again until they're older.
Oh, man.
Bad idea.
Only at night when they're asleep.
Yeah, when they're asleep. Well, it's what we're doing right now, right? We're talking. All our kids are asleep. Some people think like, oh, you should really just pick one thing and hone in on that. But I think I really like the variety.
That's boring.
Yeah, it's boring. I like the variety.
I'm the same within my photography, but also outside of. I do some other things too, but it's hard to just do one thing, man. That's too little.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like rap music, is because I get to do a lot of things with it. So not only am I writing music and I'm producing beats, the whole gamut of things involved with producing a song. I'm sometimes collaborating. I'm sometimes working with other people. So there's a social aspect. I'm sometimes performing. So there's like a
Yeah.
limelight aspect where you get to really
Mm-hmm.
throw your passion into something. And there's the video aspect. I get to film stuff. And there's the marketing aspect where I get to learn about that. Now, I will be honest, I really don't like marketing. it's it's kind of painful, but I know I'm better at it than some people are, like I'm not a total
Mm-hmm.
greenhorn with it. I've learned a lot,
Yeah.
but I just don't like it that much. But I mean, I could do it for a little bit and then I dive out into something I find more creative and interesting. And then that's what's nice about rap music for me is that there's a ton of variety in it. And there's been a lot of growth and a lot of interesting things to do. I mean, even look at this. I'm sitting in my studio having a nice conversation for a podcast that never would have happened if I wasn't investing myself into music.
Yep. And you found me through the Battle Angel Alita Facebook group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
You saw one of my photo shoots I did.
yeah, which was really good. And I
Thanks.
actually went looking for those photos, not too seriously, but I was going to look more seriously again because I was going to show my wife and a couple friends just because they're so good. It's really cool.
Thank you very much.
So with all the things you have going on, tell us about your EP.
All right. So Alita Battle Angel. So the EP, I guess, technically would be just called Battle Angel, but it's styled as Srvent Battle Angel.
Mm-hmm.
This one started in a very interesting way. So Alita, from the outside, if you didn't know, it might just seem like, oh, this guy just did some music to a movie that he likes. But it's a much deeper thing than that for me. And I was going through a kind of tough time. I was working a job I really wasn't so happy with. I was working evenings. My wife was working days, not seeing my family very much. It was just really tough, and I was frustrated. And I saw this movie, Alita Battle Angel, with absolutely no expectations. I actually went with one of my
That's
clients.
the best.
Yeah, it's so good. And to not have any expectations
Mm-hmm.
is really, it's really the only way to know whether or not you like a film.
Yeah.
So I went in with that and I watched it with a client. So what I was doing for work was a team lead for a shared living home for individuals who have special needs. And so what I was doing was meaningful work. It was good work. It was really challenging at times. And it was nice as once in a while I would get to go with my buddy, with my client, and I'd take him to the movies and we'd check something out. So I watched this Alita Battle
Nice.
Angel with him and I was like blown away. I thought, you know, I really, I gave it the suspension of disbelief appropriate that you should for a
Yeah.
film. And I just was totally eaten up by it. And I thought that was so powerful and so good and interesting. And I really identified with her character in some ways I just couldn't figure out yet. And so I told my wife about it. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but I just want you to come with me to the movies. So it was like a couple days later, I took her to go see it. And so I watched it again. I was kind of soaking it in and she really loved it. And then my client actually wanted to go see it a second time. This was when we went to the city. We really don't have many movies playing here. We have like one at a time in Edson. And so we would go to the city. And this was maybe a month later, but it was still in theaters. And he's like, oh, that's the one I want to see. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So I watched it 3 times. 3 times, still in theaters. I come home. I'm kind of ruminating on the movie. I'm like, what's so special about this? And I think for me, it came down to a line that she says kind of mid movie. And it's such a cliched, simple line, but it's so ridiculously powerful as she says, I do not stand by in the presence of evil.
Mhm.
And that was like a knife for me. It was like watching a real hero like we don't see anymore in film. And
Yeah.
I felt, I felt stirred because it's like, man, I'm in the presence of evil all the time and I stand by. It's like, I just
Mhm.
sort of felt like, there's more that I could be doing in my life to improve myself. And so it's all this sort of stuff is whirring in my head and I'm kind of working on a song. I start writing this new beat and I'm dinking around a little bit and I'm kind of doing my normal thing, whatever that is. And I stop about 2 verses in and I think to myself, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself. Why not? Just for the fun of it, I'm going to try to do some more narrative. I've written stories and songs before here and there, but I was like, you know what? This seems like a real challenge. I've watched this movie 3 times. I'm going to try to recreate the film, taking on a narrative. And I decided to go with the first person narrative from Alita's perspective. And I thought that would be interesting because you can't hear her thoughts in the film, right? I mean, it's everything, you're looking at her in third person. So I thought the challenge would be to be thematically consistent, to be able to tell the story of the film, but only from her perspective. And there is challenge in that because you don't know, or rather, she doesn't know everything that's happening to every character at every time, right? We as the viewer do.
Yeah.
And so we have the propulsion of the story to carry us like, oh, and then we see this side of things and they're doing that. And it adds tension, right? It's a very common tool that storytellers will do. And so I'm looking at what she knows, and all I have is her motivation and what's been revealed to her. So I had like these sort of pillars. This is the story, and you can't violate the story. You can't change it and try to make it your own thing. You have to make it authentic. But I just sort of started it for fun. And so I took these verses that I wrote, backpedaled, and started to recreate this story. And I think the first line is, I had been left in the garbage, harvested maybe from parts, for 4 parts. And it was like, I started from there and just kept building and building. And literally a month and a half later, I think nearly every day I was spending a little bit of time in the studio after my kids were asleep or whatever. And I was just poking away at this thing. And though it's 7 tracks, it's actually one Ableton Live file where
Wow, really?
it's, yeah, the whole thing
Dang.
is, it's interesting because it's all 120. It's all just straight up heartbeat tempo. And the tempo
Interesting.
doesn't change the whole way through it. So it's like one solid vibe the way through it. But I change instrumentally throughout, basically whenever I felt like time is for a change, like now, like we need to change the flow, we need to change the styling, and create quasi choruses out of parts. And it was, I kind of learned through the process that creativity, having restrictions in creativity, is actually a very good thing, because that's when real creativity can come alive. If you have a total blank page, there's things you can do with that, but it takes a different kind of innovation to look at, to be a cover up artist for like tattoo. If something's already there and you got to just add to it and try to make it something equally beautiful but different, that's a different challenge altogether. You have restrictions. So that's a bit about how that came about. And yeah, I just kept working on it, and I did the whole thing. Like, it's come out just now, and but I never like had the movie to like review and go over again. It was just from memory. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's my
That's a lot of
problem.
detail.
I sit on music for too long before it gets out there. But
Yeah. A lot of my other friends that do music did the same thing. They're just like, man, I've been working on a beat, or I've been working on a song. I'm like, yeah. And like a year later, it's like, man, it's really good. I'm like,
yeah,
perfectionist. That's a perfectionism right there.
yeah. I got a song about perfectionism. Yeah, it's a real killer. I know that. Yeah, for me, part of it too is like, I was not sure how it would do. Like, it seemed like such a niche thing, and I couldn't stop myself. Like, I just started doing it, and it was like, what I thought what might be like a 5-minute song or something. I realized that I was really drawing out the moments. I was really like getting into the scenes and what stuck out in my mind. And I realized that, boy, this is going to turn into a big project if I keep this up. And lo and behold, it's like 23 minutes. It's not too small. I became super proud of it, but I also wasn't sure, like, if it's going to come out, like, what am I going to do? I've never done anything like this before. My first album was called Identity, and I was, examining kind of my own identity, growing from like adolescence into adulthood to becoming a man, and some of my own personal struggles with addiction, and just, that was like that. And then, and then I had Ammunition, which was an EP that came out that was sort of I haven't put music out there in a while. I really should do this. And that turned into a cool project that I'm really proud of as well. But this was something different. I didn't know how people would resonate with it, or if they'd be like, what's he doing? Why is he doing a movie? But I just loved it so much. And I mean, like, identity is the core of the story as well, her discovering her identity.
Yeah.
So I just, resonated with it. I found her to be very heroic and admirable.
How did you go about writing the individual songs? Like, did you pick like chunks of the story in chronological order, or?
I think it was I was just kind of following the narrative as if I was writing a short story. I didn't specifically think to myself, oh, I've got to get this scene, I've got to get that scene. It was more like I'm telling the story through her perspective, trying to keep it interesting, which isn't hard because it is a good story. It's well crafted.
Yeah.
Even interestingly enough, without the scenes of seeing what everybody else is doing, she's got a lot going on. And it was really interesting to not explore that and just go into what she knows. But yeah,
Mhm.
like, so I basically just, as the story carried me, I would realize, oh, here we are. Gruishka is going to enter. You know what I mean? Like the bar scene has sort of happened and now he's coming in, and it just felt like, you know what, I need to switch it up. And so then I would switch it up and I would craft the music simultaneously as I'm writing the lyrics. And that's part of my process. I have Ableton Live on one screen, Word Perfect or whatever on the other. And I just work the music until I feel like I can write. And then I write until I feel like I need to work the music.
Mhm. Cool. Kind of an organic process.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I mean, I did have to at one point, as I was going through the story front to back, I think I got to where she reappears later on in the story. And I realized I hadn't introduced her. I hadn't taken the time to introduce her. So actually, I did go back and I adjusted some things. You know, like there was some zigzagging in terms of that because that's part of the editing process.
Well, do you feel a personal connection to Alita? Like, does her character resonate with you, or did you feel like you see some of
Yes.
yourself in
In
her?
short, yes. Besides her being inspiring, saying that I do not stand by in the presence of evil, and just how she, I think, demonstrates righteous anger, like holy anger in a way. And I mean, she takes it maybe a bit too far than, she does take vengeance in a way. Like she's very vengeful in a
Mhm.
sense. She's very personally motivated. I can be aggressive. I can have a bit of anger issues, and so I get it. I get that part of her. But the big part for her for me was the identity, was the fact that she didn't know who she was, and she was discovering who she was in these very interesting ways, and realizing that she's actually a badass. She's actually someone who matters, who can affect the world around her and do good. And to me, that's kind of what my first album was about in a sense. But I mean, I got a lot of personal demons, and I've struggled with addiction for the majority of, well, for the entirety of my adult life, essentially. And her coming to realize who she really is was sort of like me realizing who I could be, that I didn't have to be a slave. I didn't have
Mhm.
to live the life I was living all the time and just from one vice to the next and just not achieving my potential. So I really identified with that.
That's awesome. So Spencer, I saw the art of the album. Can you tell us about that? Like, who did that, and what's the imagery telling?
So I'm not really gifted in the visual department like some of us on this podcast.
Hint, hint, Daniel.
What? Who?
Well, I don't know, but anyway, so it was a guy, individual named Nate Rosas, and I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, and I'm sorry, Nate. Yeah,
That's pretty good for Canadian.
yeah, it's Nate
Yeah.
Rosas.
I was about to say, what?
Oh my gosh.
or whatever. But yeah, so Nate, different Nate, he's a very talented artist, and uh, he's really, really good. And he's someone that I met a long time ago and kept in contact with. And I've been seeing what he's doing on Instagram. Just incredible graphic artist. I should actually, while I'm talking about him, I will plug him real quick. I'm going to pull it up on my phone. His Instagram
Yeah,
hashtag,
sure.
like if you just want an idea about how talented this guy is, he really works with a lot of fan art type stuff, things that he likes and finds interesting. He draws a lot of like Harry Potter stuff, and
Mhm.
he has also like real life type portrait style that he does. So his Instagram hashtag, oh, maybe Nate Roba. Maybe Roba is what he goes by. Sorry, Nate. But I think his last name's Rosas, but then Roba is, I don't know. Nate, you can explain that when you're on the podcast, okay? Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
right. We'll
Nate,
have him
it's,
on.
I don't even know how to check the hashtag here. Just has his name. I guess it'd be NATE. Yeah, I'm here.
Are
So
you
it's
on a browser? Yeah.
NATEROBA. And if you check him out, he's got all sorts of great artwork and drawing Spider-Man and just Wolverine and like all sorts of crazy stuff. It's just amazing talent. And so I've been paying attention for a while. And coincidentally, he'd been paying attention to my music for a while too. So when I reached out to him, I was like,
Mhm.
hey, like I would really like some help with some artwork. And he was totally down. So we worked together. And what's really cool, if you check out my Instagram, a few posts back anyway, there is a video of how the art comes together. Through the app that he draws on, it records everything. And so it kind of like
Cool.
makes a video of how
Oh,
it came to
nice.
be. And you can see, like, in discussing the pose of Alita
Mhm.
and like, or myself in the role of Alita, like, what did I want it to be? And so much of that was my idea. But I was like, how about I send you a picture and you can kind of use that as a reference? And so I set up the little tripod. I used my cell phone, took a picture of myself shirtless
Woo!
because I wanted the proportions to be right, essentially. And then he sent me, the first draft or whatever. And I was looking at that and I was like, man, this is incredible. Like, and he's like, oh, well, like, look at how I did it. He literally drew over top of the image, the exact pose that I had. And you can
Oh,
see
cool.
that, like, he takes the art and
Great.
it's like, oh, it's crazy what he does. And then when I met up with him too, when I was in the
Yeah.
city at one point, he's designed this restaurant that I think was supposed to open around this time. And I met him at that restaurant and it was really, really cool. And he was just like sitting down and just like drawing for me. He's like, yeah, I could tweak this. And man, it just blows my mind to see it. So anyway, yeah, Nate Roba on Instagram.
What other movies would you like to do a tribute EPs on, like, for?
I've done some cool things with film before. Like, I have a song on my next album called Lara Croft. Yeah, so it's like, it's
Oh,
not taking her story, so to speak. It's actually more like using her. It's actually about lucid dreaming. And it's kind of like using her as an avatar
Cool.
for lucid dreaming. And it's kind of a dark, intense song. But so like I've written a song like Lara Croft. I've done work as tribute to other artists before. But when I was doing up this Alita thing, I got so much joy out of it. It was such an invigorating project. I only had one movie in mind that I thought if I ever did this again, and that would be Logan for Wolverine. And because like
Nice.
oh,
it's
nice.
so deliciously violent and powerful. Like that story blew me
True.
away. And I was really late to the game. Like I love Wolverine movies. I love them. And then for some reason, just being a dad, it came out and a year passed by and I was like, oh man, it's on Netflix. I should
Yep.
probably check it out. And I did. And man, my mind was blown. I love that movie so much too. And I think I've seen it twice. And I thought to myself, that would be a really cool one to take on old man Logan's perspective and do something with it. Cause he's, yeah, just the imagery and everything like that could be a really interesting challenge. And plus musically, like with the Alita Battle Angel one, it's kind of cinematic. It's a little more cinematic than a lot of my other work. I always have a bit of that flair, I think, but
Yeah.
with Alita, I just, I add a lot of brass instruments and I utilized orchestrated instruments at times to try to kind of match Junkie XL's. His soundtrack for it was really good, and so I kind of wanted to have something in the spirit of that, though it's totally different, and it's rap and there's a kick, so I thought it'd be interesting to tackle a Wolverine project to see musically, like,
Cool.
how would I craft it differently production wise and narratively and just get in the head of that character because it's such a powerful story. So great. So that's one. And the other thought I had is that, people have been calling for an Alita sequel for a while. So I thought, you know what? Like
Oh,
if it
yeah.
doesn't happen, I might just do my own Alita sequel, right? Like
Uh-oh.
yeah, it's like a fan art sequel,
or
but like
fan
in the
fiction.
same style, like a rap novelization of it.
It'll be rap
Yeah,
fan
because I don't
fiction.
think that's been done before. So I thought that would
Nope.
challenge me in many ways. So like I've written a book. I'm working on the second draft of it not as we speak, but yeah, I like
Oh, cool.
love science fiction and that. So like I know the process of creating. It's a lot of work. So I think if I did a sequel,
Mhm.
it would be a lot more work than the first one was.
Man, I really hope that the Avatar movies don't take away from funding and attention for a
Yeah.
Battle Angel sequel because it deserves it. I mean, the material's already there. It's not like they have to write much. They just need to adapt it and put the money into
Yeah.
it.
And I think the audience is there for it. I think it's a bit of a sleeper hit.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Now there
it
is.
did well enough. Like it
Yeah.
passed, it made good enough money. But
Mhm.
really, like, it's people who are bringing it into their homes are just finding a love for this film. It's funny, like, I used to be really hypercritical of film, I think, until I became a dad and my time was more precious. And then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? If I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm really just going to like
Yeah.
give it all the license it needs. And I mean, nothing's more disappointing than when you watch a movie that disappoints you. I think that
Yeah.
that's what more people should do is they should just like check out Alita, sit down and give it a watch and just don't read up on
Mhm.
it, nothing. If you've listened to my EP, that's cool. I really hope that it doesn't take away from the film. My sole goal was for it
No.
to add something or to
Oh yeah, I think it
well,
does.
thank you. Yeah, just like a different perspective, but the kind of thing where if you heard it, you would want to watch the film. And then if you watch the film
Mhm.
and you knew that I made it, you might want to hear what I made. And I've already had some people telling me that. They're like, actually, I haven't seen the movie when I listened to it, but now I really want to see the movie. So,
Nice.
mhm.
You got him into it. The fandom community online is really strong for Alita.
Yeah.
And I don't know I'm curious how much of them are original fans, like with the manga, and the original movie. There's an anime movie that came out like in the 90s, I think.
Yeah, I heard of it.
So it's been on screen, just not the big screen. And the manga, I believe, was first. But I'm curious how many of these hardcore fans are original fans or they're just new. Like for me, I knew about the manga when I was into anime when I was a teenager. I knew about Alita Battle Angel because I always saw that really cool piece of art with her wings and stuff, which would be awesome to see come into the movies.
Mm.
Definitely in the sequel, I'd love to see some angel wing action.
Oh, man.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew about it, but I didn't know. I didn't read the manga, so I'm kind of one of the newer ones, like like a newer fan that's got into it via the movies.
Yeah, same with
Um,
me. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know it was an existing manga before. And
mhm.
in making like my own project for the Alita Battle Angel, I wanted the influence to be just from the film because I know that it's bound to be a little different from the original. I know that they take
Yeah.
liberties and stuff like that, but it was the film that I fell in love with, and I'm grateful to everything else that has existed in the Alita verse because I wouldn't have got such a great film if it didn't. And I do
Mhm.
intend to explore the manga. I've never really read manga before, but my brother does a lot, and he's explained to me it's a little bit backwards and
Hmm.
literally, well, because you're reading it backwards as opposed to English, right? So it's like,
But
yeah, dad joke. But yeah, I'm willing to dive into it, and especially if I did decide to mount my own sequel with the lack of James Cameron funding, I think I would want to dive into the literature, and I'd want to see like what else is going on in this story.
Cool. Now let's talk about that. I mean, have you been worried about any kind of copyright issues or cease and desist? Like, you have any connections
Um,
with anyone in the movie?
okay, so actually, I something I'm part of. It's a company called Artist Pro, and I became involved with that through this Alita thing actually because short version of it, basically I fell in love with the movie. I started working on the project, and out of bizarre curiosity I browsed Instagram, and that's something I never do, but I checked out, like, I'll read what's in my feed. I have a very small feed, but I don't like go and browse. But I was like, like, I want to see more about this Alita thing, and I checked out Junkie XL, or Tom Holkenborg, who's the composer for the film, and I checked him
Yeah.
out, and I was like, "Oh, dang, like, this guy's cool." Um, he made the music for this. Oh, he did the music for Mad Max. Like, man, this is a really cool guy. So I
Ooh.
Oh
I
wow.
checked out what he was doing, and then out of, again, bizarre curiosity, I I clicked on who is he following, and he was following this dude named Hishem, who didn't have a huge following or anything, but he was throwing on this thing called Artist Pro as sort of like education for artists who are trying to transition from amateur into professional. And so I was like, well, why is
Hmm.
like Junkie XL following this guy? Like maybe there's a personal connection or something. Like I don't know, but I was really intrigued by this Artist Pro, and so I applied to that, and I was accepted in because it was what was it, the beta version of the program, and it's this guy Hashem Dahoud. He teaches at or rather he taught at what's that academy called? Some big thing down in Los Angeles, and I don't know why it's escaping me. Oh man, but he's teaches at these ASCAP things, and like he's involved in the industry and he works with people, and So I was trying to learn more about my career as a rap artist through him. And then I did find out that he has, a professional relationship with Tom Holkenborg.
Oh
And so I
wow.
was like, well, that's cool. And then it turns out I actually did a really good job in Artist Pro. I think I really fit in with the culture, and I really absorbed what I was being taught, and I made a lot of connections down in Los Angeles, and I was just connecting with people through this awesome course stuff. And then he actually invited me on as part of the staff as for Artist
Whoa.
Pro. So it's sort of a part-time gig, but I was working with him, and I still am. Just we're kind of a little bit on hold with the COVID stuff right now. And
Yeah.
it's basically just like trying to help artists turn from amateur into professional, and just being an example of someone who shows that you can have a family, you can have lots going on in your life, but you can still be an artist. You don't have to trade one for the other, And so, basically just like he liked me and gave me a job, and I was like, that's awesome. So like
That's so
I know
cool.
that he's connected, and I try not to lean on him and be like, hey, can you send this to Tom Holkenborg? Like, cause like I really want him to see it.
James Cameron.
But like I applied for like a film score academy as well, and I didn't get in or anything like that, but that's something that Tom had put on. And so I've kind of like, I think my name's been thrown in his direction. I think I passed an email was passed on to him or whatever. And I mean, a guy like him is really super busy. But I am hoping to reach out to him now that it's out there. I hope that
Mhm.
it'd be nice if I was able to connect with him, because he's really like been fundamental in the project in a way that he wouldn't realize, just in terms of how
Yeah.
fascinated I was with the soundtrack, and then how it inspired me to kind of make my own rap soundtrack. So I'd like to connect with him certainly about it. But he's a busy guy, and I'm not expecting anything from that. And I don't want to lean on people for their connections either. And Hashem's just a great
Yeah.
guy, who's a friend actually now. So I'm really happy to work with him, and I don't want to use people. So
That's so cool.
yeah,
So you got a lot going on, but what else are you working on?
a lot more than this. um, so there was a time when I was super secretive about all this, and I just felt like I needed to not tell people what I was doing. I just got to surprise them all the time. And honestly, that mentality as a very busy individual would contribute into the mentality of not sharing anything. I would kind of be
Yeah.
like, well, I got to surprise them. So it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. And you know what? I just kind of felt like, forget that. I'm going to start telling people what's up. So I have a second album. So I guess what's out so far, I got Identity, came out in 2018. That's my first album. 2019, Ammunition is an EP that came out, 7 tracks, and that's about hope. And I think it's really good, obviously, because I made it and I like what I make. And then
A little biased.
a little
Just
bit
bit
biased. I got several singles out there too, but then I have this Alita Battle Angel one just came out this last week. And next on the chopping block is probably a project of mine called Water. And this is actually something that I'm working with another producer. So I've produced everything my own. Other than one of my singles, I worked with a guy out of Morocco who was really great. But basically, I always produce my own stuff. But for this one, he took a primary producer role, and I took some of his beats. And I did still produce. I did readapt some of what he was doing. I did add instrumentation here and there and create subsections. But in general, like the mostly produced by him. This guy named Dean
Cool.
Pala, who's I think the director for Slate Academy or Slate Digital. They do a lot of innovative music stuff down in Los Angeles, and so he and I were working together on it. And I've been sitting on that one for a while. And he's really busy, and I'm really busy, and I kind of put it on the side for other projects. But that one I think is going to be the next one on the chopping block to throw out there, because I kind of want to get it out and over with. I just want it out there. It has a different feel.
Yeah.
I it's definitely like edgy. I don't know. Some of my stuff's edgy, but like I definitely push a different boundary, being primarily the rap artist and not the producer. So I
Yeah.
pushed myself in a different way with that. And that'll be 7 tracks. I don't know why I've just decided all my EPs will be 7 tracks and all my albums will be 15.
It's a good number.
Yeah. So that one's coming out. And then I have another EP. I haven't quite come to a title with it. And that one's called Story for now. But basically every track on that one is going to be a piece of narrative. It's going to be a story, whether it's a story that I've come up with on my own or a story I'm readapting. 7 songs that are all stories. And I have a really big feature. I have an artist named Afro, All Flows Reach Out, guy based out of California who's toured with R.A. the Rugged Man. And he's featured on a song with me that we worked organically for. And it was just bizarre, super bizarre how that happened. I'm really pumped about that. I have that music video filmed and I'm going to have more. So that's the story EP. And then I have another album called Hunger. And that mother is going to come out. Busy. Yeah, that one I'm planning to come out for September because if hopefully this COVID stuff passes, I would like to do a mini tour and September would be a good time for that. So I'm kind of thinking I'll get at least one EP, maybe both of those EPs out of the way before Hunger comes out. I'd like to just not be so backlogged. I'd like to get into the flow of things where I'm creating and putting out in a reasonable amount of time and not producing a bunch of stuff, getting depressed and not going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Because I've been there.
That's the struggle of the artist. And I mean, if something takes too long, then you lose the vision, you lose the passion, and you get distracted.
Yeah. And I mean, like Alita came out now, which is nice. But if you imagine, like, I basically had it ready. It could have come out when the Blu-ray dropped, like that could have been good timing.
Oh, wow.
When you think about it, or the Oscars, when it becomes like, you never know what's going on with news, but it's like, if I'd have sat on that guy, if I'd have sat on it for like 5 years, like, would it have ever shown? Would I have ever worked up the nerve to put it out there? And I don't know if I would. Yeah. And that would suck because that would just eat away at my conscience. And then it just tells you that like, I'm not putting my work out there. Am I really an artist? Am I really a rap artist? Should I even be doing this? Like all the demons come out.
The spiral. Yeah. The spiral of artist.
Yeah. And
self-doubt.
And I wanted to get out of that spiral. So it's like, this one, I didn't set a date or anything. I was just like, I got to get it out there. But there is one piece of news with that. There is going to be video content. And I've recorded some stuff. It's fairly performance based. But I do have a YouTube video that's going to come out basically as soon as I can get it out. And that'll be a nice visual to accompany it.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be sure to give us those links when they come out, and we'll share them on our page and see what we can do to help you out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Awesome. Well, again, tell us how we can find you online before we sign out for this episode. We want to definitely get our listeners listening to you.
Well, awesome. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Before I tell you that, I'll just say thanks for having me on. Like, this is fun. I really appreciate it, man. The opportunity to talk about myself. Just kidding.
Isn't that fun?
Well, it's just nice when people have interest in what you're doing and you get to discuss it. Because
totally,
it's all going on under the surface. Full well, right? It's like you're just like practically bursting for someone to ask, and then when they do, it all comes out. So,
but you never ask.
Yeah. So thank you both for that. Where people can find me, again, is if you go to srvent.com, srvent.com. I actually haven't even updated it to put the Alita project on there, but basically everything else is there. If you find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Srvent. My hashtag for Instagram is Srvent_kingdom. I'm really just on Instagram and Facebook because Twitter scares me. But those are good ones to follow me. And I try to put meaningful, worthwhile content. So if people do check out what I'm doing, I try not to waste your time. It's really valuable. My time's really valuable to me, and I really respect that in people who do take the time to listen and pay attention, and I never want to take advantage of that. So don't expect just a bunch of stupidity. I'm just going to try to share things that I think are worthwhile.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and can't wait to listen to your album again and listen to whatever else is coming out in the future.
All right. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, Nate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right. For anyone else out there listening, be sure to check out his stuff online. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you have any other questions for Spencer or for us, you can email us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or Instagram on our profile. Thanks again for listening, and we'll be with you next week. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.